So we're on the final story of the second part of this long series. So I think we're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Number 7 today. And it's another well-known story. So we're looking at something that we know as the parable of the talents. So it says the parable of the talents in some of the, how do I say this? Some of the older translations or some of the more like literal translations of the Bible. If you're reading in the NIV, it might say the parable of the gold. We'll cover that off a little bit later. But before we read from Matthew 25 and get into that story, I'm wondering if you can picture yourself in this a little bit. I remember when Esther's grandfather passed away a few years ago, and we were sorting his house out. So we were clearing out his bedroom, clearing out his wardrobe, and under the bed, can anyone guess what we found? Not sausages. We found a brown envelope full of cash, full of money. And then we'd be folding his numbered. And then we'd be folding his jacket from his wardrobe, and we'd be like, "Oh, what's that?" And on his inside pocket, we'd find a brown envelope full of money, and we'd be emptying his drawers, and sellotaped to the underneath of the drawer would be a brown envelope full of cash, full of money. And it turned, we'd find like envelopes of money in most weird and wonderful places in his house. And it turned from, let's sort out Cyril's house. It turned from that into a game of treasure hunt. Because, like Esther said, these envelopes were numbered. And we were like, it's got like a number 24 in it. There must be at least 24 of these envelopes here. There weren't, unfortunately. Otherwise, we would be living in the Caribbean somewhere if we'd found all that cash. But one of my colleagues in work, his dad passed away the other day, and I had a call with him, and I was like, "Oh, Phil, really sorry, like, how's things going?" And he was like, "Dave, you'll never guess what happened. I was sorting Dad's house, and I found bags of cash everywhere." I don't know if you've got cash hidden anywhere. Keep that a secret. If you've got it numbered, I would highly recommend putting some random amount so that the people who find it, you leave them a bit of a game to sort out when you've gone. And I think this I guess the character or the nature then of hiding money is a bit of a hangover from those who have gone through and experienced hard times. My grandparents' generation probably knew it or went through it probably better than anyone else. It's like, I don't trust the banks, or I don't trust the good times to last. So when I've got excess, or when I've got what I've got, I'm gonna store it. I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna hide it. I'm gonna that tin on the mantelpiece where all the spare change goes, that it's there just in case, or a roll of banknotes in the back of your drawer. Money buried where nobody would get at it, not the bank or not the tax man, but it's just hidden, because often out of fear of what's to come. You don't know what the future's going to hold, so I'm going to hold tight to what I've got. I'm not going to give any of it away, or I'm not going to trust it with anybody else to do anything with it. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to store it. Essentially, I'm going to bury it for better days. But listen, there's a world of difference between burying your money because times are hard and burying it because you've got the wrong idea about the person who gave it to you. And that's essentially the story that we're going to look at today. It's essentially the story that Jesus tells. It's a story about a servant who took something precious, who took something that Jesus had given him, or his master had given him, and he put it in the ground, not because he was poor, or not because he was lazy, or not because he was afraid of work, but because he was afraid of the master. So if you want to read along, the words will be on screen if you can read it. It's a bit sunny, but we're in Matthew 25 today, starting at verse 14. And Jesus says this, "For it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, 'Master, you delivered me 5 talents. Here I made 5 talents more.' And his master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master.' And he also who had the 2 talents came forward, saying, Master, you delivered me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, have what is yours. But his master answered him, you wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I scattered no seed. ? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will be more given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Ooh. So Jesus is days from the cross here. And he's sitting with his disciples on the Mount of Olives. And he is telling them what it will be like when he goes away. And also telling them what it will be like when he comes back. And this parable is sort of sits between the parable of the 10 virgins waiting for the bridegroom. So they're in this period of waiting, and the sheep and the goats before the throne. So this isn't a sermon about your career. It's not about a sermon about your money or your gifts or your talent or your productivity. Essentially, this is a story about how you live while you wait for a king who has gone away and has promised to come back. The story tells us that a man goes on the journey. The master goes on the journey, and before he leaves, he calls his servants in and he leaves them his property. Like, he doesn't give them a salary or a wage, or he doesn't loan them the money. He takes his own wealth, everything that he has, and he places it into their hands. To one, 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1. Now, does anybody know how much a talent is? Like in the NIV, I might say a pot of gold. Anyone want to guess? A talent? So talent is 6,000 denarius, which, if we were to convert that today, is the best part. A single talent, 1 talent, is the equivalent to 20 years' wages. Okay, so when it's interesting when Jesus talks about, like, you know, to him who has a little, I give you a lot. Like, a 20 years' salary is not a little, is it? So let's put that into perspective. Say you earn £25,000 a year, right? So times that by 20, the 1 talent that he gave this servant was the equivalent of £500,000. Like, that's a lot of money. I was going to do some quick maths and times that by 2 and 5. So the person with 5 has got £2.5 million. Like, if we were to convert that to today's money, like, and that's just 25. That's a lot of money. The master was trusting his servants essentially with everything that he had, everything that he'd worked for, everything that he had in his possession. Now, here's the sermon that you might be expecting me to preach this morning. You might be expecting me to say, God has given you all a talent. Like, some of you can sing, some of you can teach, some of you can make cakes, some of you can cook, some of you can fix a boiler, some of you can paint a wall. So don't waste what you have. Don't waste what God has given you. Don't bury it. Get out there and use your gifts for God. Yeah? You might have heard that sermon before. Countless times, and I've probably preached that sermon in the past as well. And there's a bit of truth to that. There is an element of truth to that. But if that's all we talk about this morning, then I think it fails to really grasp what Jesus is talking about and what the deeper meaning or the actual purpose of Jesus' parable is. You know, we are values people. Yeah, we love a worker. We love a grafter. You earn your keep. You pull your weight. You don't take what you haven't worked for. And that's a fine way to run a business, or that's a fine way to operate as a worker, but it's a terrible way to actually understand God. Because if this parable is just work harder for God, or he'll be disappointed in you, then the person with the 5 talents walks out of here feeling really proud of themselves. And the person with the 1 talent walks out crushed. And every single one of us will walk home today, or drive home today, wondering if you've done enough. Have I done enough? Have I pleased God? Is God going to be disappointed in what I have done with what he has given me? And I promise you, that's not the story that Jesus is telling. So let's have a look at what he's actually doing. So 2 servants trade. They take their money, they do something with it, they invest it, they trade it, and their money doubles. And one servant digs a hole, buries the money in it, hides it in the ground. And when the master comes home, that's when we hear why he did that. That's what the third servant says. He says, I knew you to be a hard man. I knew you to be a hard man, so I was afraid, and I hid your talent in the ground. And I think that's the key to this story. I think that's where this whole story hinges on that line. He didn't bury the money because he was lazy. He didn't bury the money because he didn't want to work or that he didn't want to invest it or do anything with it. He buried it because of what he believed incorrectly about the master. He looked at a man who had just handed him a fortune, just handed him £500,000, like in today's money, trusted him with everything, and rather than see the generosity or the kindness or the love, he instead saw a hard man. He saw a taskmaster, someone waiting to catch him out, someone to essentially reap what he hasn't sown. And so he was afraid. And it was this man's fear that led to him burying the talent. The two faithful servants and the one wicked servant were not separated by talent or ability, but they were separated by what they thought of the master. The first two saw a generous master, a master who shared his wealth, who trusted them, who give them the confidence and give them they were allowed to go out, the trust in them to go and do something with what he had given them. But the third one saw essentially a master who didn't exist, or who only existed in their mind. He served the God of his own fear, and he buried it. And that God, so his fear or his distrust of the master, he tried to keep at arm's length there. Like that God, in his mind, he thought, I'm going to give back exactly what he's given me. No more, no less. I'm not sure what he's going to say to me at the end of it. And fear was the driver of this man's actions, rather than the truth of who the master actually was. And it showed, because the two who knew the master, they didn't just think differently about the master, but they lived differently. They acted differently. Look at them. It says the moment the master left, like they're out the door. They're trading that money. They're risking that money in the open. They're gone. They're like, I've just received this. Right. I've been given this money. Now I can do something with it to benefit all, really. Why do they do it? They don't do it to earn his approval, because in some ways, they already had his approval. He just placed a fortune in their hands, £1 million, £2.5 million, whatever it was. But they went out because they knew him. Like, they had the right view of the master, which caused them to act. So they saw who he was, which led them to go. They trusted him. Like, they saw the trust that they had received from him, and they were glad of that trust. Like, there were no conditions attached, and they knew his love, so they went. And a faith that has really seen the goodness of God, who's really seen the grace of God, who's seen the favor of God and his faithfulness, isn't meant to be buried in the ground. We're not meant to take that and just keep it. We're not meant to guard that or hide that. And faith in action, so taking the faith that we have and the faith that we've received, it looks different to different people in different situations all the time. But ultimately, that faith is meant to be used. It's meant to be shared. It's meant to be worked. It's meant to be risked. It's meant to be made known to others. We've got to do something with what we have been given. And it looks different. It might look like forgiving someone before they even said sorry. It might look like praying for someone out loud, someone who didn't even know that you were a praying person, praying for them there and then rather than promising to do it in silence. It might look like telling someone who you've known for 20 years what Jesus actually means to you. It might look like showing up a second time for a person who let you down the first time, or it might look like giving up, the only free time that you've got to help and serve someone else without being asked twice. There's so many different ways that us putting our faith in action and living out what it means to be a follower of Jesus looks like. But we don't do any of this to earn anything. We're not trying to earn God's favor. We're not trying to earn our salvation there. But we do all of it because the master is good. And because our view of the master is correct. You act because you know him. Like, real faith isn't just idle. It's not just It's not static or paused. It moves. And it doesn't move because we are anxious or because we are fearful or because we're worried about what might happen if we don't. It's not scared, but we move because the faith that we have in Jesus is alive. It is active. It is real. And it makes a difference today. And we know that. And that was always the difference between the two faithful servants and the one faithless servant. It's not about the size of the return. It's not about the return on the investment or how big the pot was that they gave back the master, but rather it was about whether they knew him well enough to move, to go, to use what they had for the master's glory. And I was amazed, really. I don't think I'd ever really stopped to really consider the response of the master to the two faithful servants then. Like, look at what he actually says. To the man with 5 and to the man with 2, he says the same words, the exact same words. Well done, good and faithful servant. Like, one brought back 10 talents and the other brought back 4 talents. Now, 6 times 20, like the annual, I can't do that maths, like, quickly. But that's a big difference, isn't it, in return between 4 talents and 10 talents. But they both hear the exact same commendation from the master. Because the master wasn't measuring the size or the output of the return. He wasn't like measuring how much that he would get back, but rather he was looking at their faithfulness. That's what he cared about. It wasn't necessarily what they did that mattered, rather that they trusted the master to do something with what he had given them. And then the best part, the reward. It wasn't like a bonus, or it wasn't a promotion, or it wasn't like more work for them to do. The reward for what they did was, both of them, enter into the joy of your master. Enter in, to come in and share my joy. That's the reward, is to experience the joy of the master. And that made me think, like, does that sound like a hard man to you? Does that sound like a taskmaster, somebody who doesn't treat his employees well, or would be, the words that the faithless servant described him? Come and share my joy. I think the master that the servant feared wasn't real. The real master wanted them at his table all along. He wanted to share the joy that he had with them from the start. And it ends like really tragically, doesn't it? Like, Jesus doesn't mince his words. It's got a harsh ending, like his response, because the master doesn't gently correct or there's no like gentle teaching here. He doesn't come alongside the faithless servant and put his arm around him and say, "Oh, listen, like, thanks for giving me what I give you. Maybe next time, have you thought about trading it or maybe investing in something?" He's like severe. He calls him a wicked and slothful servant. He calls him worthless. He says he's cast out into the darkness where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. It's the language of judgment here. Like, Jesus doesn't hold back. But he's not condemned for a small return. Like, he didn't lose anything, did he? He didn't lose the money. He gave the money back. He was condemned for what his hiding of the talent revealed, I think. I think when he called the master hard, it's almost like a slanderous term to him. He's saying to the others, like, come and enter the joy. Come and enter my joy. Come and eat at my table. Like, come and gather. And yet this guy is calling him like a hard man. It was the lie that he told himself so that he can keep the true master at arm's length. And he could feel justified in doing that. Because ultimately, if the master truly is hard, then burying that talent is probably like the sensible thing to do. Like, if God is a threat, then keeping God at a distance is wisdom. You are protecting yourself in that moment. You don't know how that God is going to respond or react to you. So if I invest it and I lose it, am I going to get hammered? Or if I take it and do something with it and get a return, is God going to be displeased with me for not being obedient? Like, he's in a moment of, well, I don't really understand this master. I don't really trust him. So I've created this lie about him, and I'm just going to hide and I'm just going to bury everything that he's given. He's using a lie about God to excuse a life that really wanted nothing to do with him. And that not the size of the pile, not the size of the return, not the return on investment that he's got. That is what cast the man into the dark. Like, grace was there. Like, plenty was there. He got given a lot. Joy was available. That was the reward. But all he saw of the master was a threat. So where's Jesus in all this? Because, the whole point of this series, really, every one of these stories, is in the end, is about him. It's about Jesus. So let's start with this. Who is the master that goes away and promises to come back? And who entrusts his wealth to ordinary servants and then invites them into his joy? It's not a trick question. Jesus is the one who does that. It is Jesus, the master of the story, of the story of it all. Doesn't stay on his throne, but rather he steps down. He comes into this earth. He walks on this earth, and he becomes a servant. He becomes the servant that Isaiah promised or prophesied, that he was despised, he was rejected, he was crushed for us. Into death he went, and he rose again, and he ascended back to the Father, back to the throne. And on his way, he told his followers, he told his disciples something they didn't expect. He says, listen, it is for your good. It is to your advantage that I am going away. They're like, what do you mean? Like, you are the Messiah. How can it be good for you to go? And then he says, because I'm not leaving you empty-handed. He was sending the Spirit himself, not just to work in ordinary people, but to dwell, to live, to make his home there in all who believe in him. And with it, like, to know and experience the trust and the love and the mercy and the grace and the forgiveness, all the gifts that Jesus has for us, everything the Father has placed into the hands of servants who haven't earned a penny of it. That's the wealth on offer. That's the gift that is given to us. And that's what's sitting in your hands while he's away. And one day, he told us plainly that he is coming back to settle his accounts. Does that mean that we need to become good servants? Well, how do we do that? Like, I gotta be honest, I'm pretty risk averse. That's probably like my natural lean in. Like, I like to save. I like to know that there's enough there for future expenses and for when something goes wrong. You having like a rainy day account, where I've probably got more rainy day accounts than actual living accounts. But the idea of investing, it excites me. I was like, oh, wouldn't it be great, to invest here, there, and see a wonderful return? But it also terrifies me because what if I invest this money and all of a sudden it goes? Because the disclaimer on every investment firm is your investments might go up or down depending on the market. I'm like, well, yeah, I like the idea of it going up. That sounds good to me, but I don't want it to go down because I've earned that money and I want to keep that safe. I'm probably more like the one who would bury his one talent than more like the one with 5 who went and doubled it. I don't know if that's just me in this room. So how does one become a good servant? Is that dependent on us? Is that the challenge, really? Is that the action for today? Is that what Jesus is saying? Well, the reality is there's only ever been one truly faithful good servant, one who took everything the Father placed into his hands and was faithful to the very end. He did not bury his life in the ground to keep it safe, but rather he buried his life in the ground for it to be poured out to all. He shed his blood on the cross for each and every one of us. Like, he did it all for us. For the ones who identify as the servant who would bury his talent in the ground, Jesus died. For the one who would take the 5 and the 2 talents and go and double it, Jesus died. For the buriers, for the fearful, for the ones who have got God wrong, for the ones who think something of him that is a lie, on the cross, the sky goes black over him. Darkness, Matthew tells us, over the whole land. In the middle of the day, the faithful servant is forsaken. The judgment that the third servant earned fell on Jesus instead. And he steps into the dark so that the burier can hear, well done, well done. He looks at me, whose natural leaning is to keep safe what he has, and says, well done. Like, the well done isn't something that's earned. The well done isn't based on anything that I can do. It's not based on my talent, my ability, my investment strategy. It's not based on whether I deal with my fear and work through that, but rather the well done is Christ's. It's Jesus's. And he gives it to us. He hands it to you. he looks at you and says, well done. He was faithful so that his faithfulness could be counted as yours. His righteousness could be attributed to you. That when God the Father looks at you, he doesn't look at you like as filthy rags, but rather he looks at you white as snow, spotless, because the blood of Jesus covers you. And that is how fear finally dies. You cannot love a master that you think is hard or that you think is a taskmaster. You'll only ever bury that God. You'll only ever bury that master. But when our eyes are fixed, when our eyes are drawn to the cross, when we see what Jesus actually did for us, there is no way that you can call him hard. There's no way that you can call him a taskmaster, like for what he did for you on that cross. Like that type of master doesn't bleed for his servants. He doesn't give his life up for anyone else. Only love does that. And when you see that, your fear starts to go. You see him for who he really is. and in its place comes the one thing that actually makes a faithful servant. It's not fear, but it is joy. And sometimes it feels odd to look at the cross and to feel joy and to experience joy and to know joy. But that is the offer that is given to us. That is what the Master is saying. Come on in and enter my joy. See, religion takes the talent and buries it out of caution. Yet the gospel sees the Master's face at the cross and goes into the world unafraid. That's the call for us. The tax collector comes with empty hands. The builder builds on rock instead of sand. And the two servants who risked what they had been given, they did so because they knew the Master's heart. How do we respond to what Jesus has done for us? The mercy, the assurance, the forgiveness, the love, the price that Jesus paid for us, the gift that he gives us and asks us to trust him, the gift, the outcome, the result of that is joy. Joy in his presence. And to some of us this morning, we might be the barrier. Yeah, we might be the one who takes the talent, digs a little hole, and buries it, keeping God at a safe distance, maybe for years. You do the minimum, do the religious minimum, but we've never really fully trusted him because deep down, you've got an idea of who God is that isn't reality. We think that God is hard, that we think that God wants too much from you, or that he's too demanding. If that's you this morning, look at the cross afresh and let that lie die. He is not a hard God. He is a loving God. He is not what your fear has told you he is. To some of us in the room, you might be the grafter. You might be like, the more I work, the more I do, the bigger the pile that I gather, the more God is going to be pleased with me. Trying to get that return on investment. But ultimately, you're just exhausted. Like, you keep comparing yourself to others, or look at what they're doing over there, or look at that church, or look at how they're doing that. Never sure if you're doing enough. Like, that's the most exhausting place to be. Questioning, am I doing enough, Lord? Am I doing enough for you? Like, what is my reward going to be? When am I going to see, like, a return on it? Like, just stop. Just stop. That is not what we are called to do, because the well done has already been spoken over you in Christ. You don't serve to secure the relationship. You don't serve to secure the joy. You don't serve to secure the gifts, but you serve because it's secure. It has been done. It is finished. It is done. Simple. And some of you feel like the one talent one, not necessarily like bearing it, but you think, oh, I'm just in a small church and living in a small valley. Like, I've got a relatively small life. I got nothing much to bring, really. Listen to what Jesus says to these people. Faithful with a little, they hear the exact same words as faithful with a lot. Your faithfulness counts. That is what matters. Every bit of it. And some of you know the Master well. Like, you've got a right view of him. You know who he is. Like, you've walked with him for years. You know his grace. You know his character. You've experienced his love and his faithfulness towards you. So let me ask you probably a more pointed and straight question. Where is fear still stopping you? Like, who is it that you've not spoken to? Or what is it that you've not done? What is that thing, that gift, that invitation, that conversation, that ministry, that money, that risk that you've buried, maybe for a moment because you've forgotten just how good he is? Knowing him was never meant to leave you standing still. It was always meant to send you out. So when we know the Master, we can go. Like we've got the full trust of him, and also we've got everything that we need. He lives in us. He dwells in us. The same power that raised Christ from the grave lives in us, so we can go boldly with confidence, knowing that he is there. And finally, some of us might just still be at a bit of a distance, holding God at arm's length, like handing back the minimum, thinking that it's enough, that it's safe, that he'll be pleased with that. Just know this morning, that the Master, he comes near to us. Like, he has a face, he's got a name, he's got like holes in his hands, and you don't come to know him by working harder, but rather you come to know him by trusting the one who is faithful for you. So the invitation, as always, is just to come in, to stop burying him, or to stop just giving the bare minimum out of fear, but come and enter the joy that he gives us. He's coming back. It says he's coming to settle accounts. And when you truly know the Master, you stop hiding. You stop calculating, is it enough? Have I done enough? Have I got enough to give him? You stop protecting yourself. You come out to the ground. Why? Because perfect love casts out fear. You don't need the tin sat on the mantelpiece anymore. You don't need the brown envelopes like under the bed or hidden in the drawers or stuffed in your coat pocket. You don't need any of that, because your security was never in what you held back, but it was rather in a Master who held nothing back for you. And on that day, the question won't be how much you made. It won't be how much you brought with you. It won't be how much you have done. The question will be, did you know the Master? And did knowing him set you free to live for him? The Master has a name, and his name is Jesus. So let's